August 27th Planning Commission meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Quilty,
Here.
Vice Chair Hasty,
Here.
Commissioner Griego,
Here.
Commissioner Heichman,
Here.
and Commissioner Leger.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, with that, I'll open up the oral communications if there's anybody who would like to speak on an item that is not on the calendar. Seeing nobody, we'll close that and move to the consent calendar and the approval of the June 25th Planning Commission minutes. Do I have a motion or any comments?
I have a comment.
Okay.
On page is it? Sorry. In page 7 of the packet, the item that about my input, Commissioner Heichman asked for, the case, it would be the case citation that I asked for, not the citation number.
Yeah.
And then where it says Ninth Circuit, you can add Court of Appeals after that. And capitalize the N and the C. Just a little grammatical correction. Thank you.
Okay, with those changes, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I abstain because I wasn't here. Okay, with that, we'll move on to the public hearing. We're going to start with 7B first since the applicant is here. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, so thank you, Chair and members of our Planning Commission. Just wanted to introduce the item, and then I'll kick it off to Tom, our city senior planner. So this is a conditional use permit application or applicant that's here on site for permanent makeup. This item is for consideration of the CUP for land use of a personal services, restricted permanent makeup microblading tattoo business in a 1,000 square foot salon in a legal non-conforming commercial building. So I'll go ahead and kick it off to Tom to present the item to you.
Yes, let's see, Chair Quilty and members of the Planning Commission, conditional use permit 2502 considers a permit for the land use of personal services restricted, which in this case is for permanent makeup, which is also considered tattoo as well, because it's basically the same equipment and everything, and microblading as well. And in this business would be inside of a 1,000 square foot salon that exists already, and it's legal non-conforming, the building, because it's in a zone that's not commercial anymore. It's in the R4 zone, and the applicant is here with us tonight, Yin Jenny Din of Yin Brows and Beyond, and they may ask you later to come up and talk if you wanted to. Ms. Din submitted the conditional use permit for a building in Dutch Haven Shopping Center. The formerly general commercial zoned area changed to R4 zoning due to the city's designation of that as an opportunity site within the RENA numbers, which are the regional housing needs allocation numbers, where the state asked us to find places for housing in the city, and that was one of the areas. As a result, the building became legal non-conforming, the parcel's legal non-conforming, and all the uses in it are legal non-conforming. But staff believes that this business has a sublease within the existing salon business, since this is a general type of thing that would be in an ancillary support business to salon stuff, could apply for a CUP in this case. Los Alamitos Municipal Code 1766 says that as a non-conforming business, the salon and its salon type, it doesn't say the salon, but it speaks to that the salon and salon type uses can remain provided that they're not abandoned, the use is not abandoned, it's not intensified, expanded, or overparked, which in no case would this be that way. The definition of non-conforming uses is provided in the staff report. We can discuss that later if you'd like. The conditional use permit application presented tonight asks commissioners to consider whether this personal services restricted use is appropriate at this location. And while the main salon business has existed in this location since 2021, everyday concerns such as noise, parking, safety should be considered. And the Planning Commission approves or denies this use based on the findings in the conditional use permit section of the municipal code. And staff placed a condition in the approval conditions of approval number 11 that the daily hours of operation not extend beyond 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., which is longer than what she asked for, but that's just in case she becomes, popular and needs that time. General plan, the general plan has an objective to preserve existing businesses, of course, and the land use element policy 3.2 says preserve the economic viability and continuity of existing commercial and industrial businesses, which the reason why she wants to go into this place is to help this salon expand and survive. The type of use, personal services restricted, requires one space per 300 square feet of the unit. Most commercial uses require one space per 250 square feet. So this actually uses less space than a usual type of business in this building. And staff has reviewed this business for consistency with the general plan, the municipal code, and compatibility with surrounding uses, and believes that affirmative findings can be made for the proposed CUP. Therefore, staff recommends approval, and this concludes my report.
I have a quick question, because I was a little surprised that she needed a CUP, because it's so similar, and there are other nail salons that also have this in the back. Is it because it's legal non-conforming now?
No, tattoo requires a CUP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
and it, there's a vision that people have about tattoo, and when it's permanent makeup, people think, not a big deal. But when they put mom on your shoulder, it's a big deal. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
With that, we'll open up the public hearing. Would the applicant like to come up and speak? Or just if we have questions? Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I have for them, for Tom. So,
Oh, 1 second. I'm going to
okay,
close the
okay,
public
good,
hearing.
sorry, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, thank you. So what you're saying is the CUP is required just because it falls under the tattoo, but the only reason it's here for other reasons is because of the way that area is zoned, because we had to, because of the arena numbers.
No, it's a tattoo is not a use that can be in the residential zone normally.
Correct, but this wouldn't be
But-
residential zone if it was what it was.
If it was what it was, exactly.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
I have a question as well. It's really more about the non-conforming process.
Right.
Should I ask that now, or should we discuss it at another time? Okay, so on page 31, it talks about once a non-conforming use is terminated, discontinued, or abandoned, the occupancy afterward may not revert to the same or another non-conforming use. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's normally referred to as riding with the land is what it is. When let's say a restaurant has alcohol use, as long as restaurants continue to be in that location and it remains in that zone, and no one builds an apartment, for instance. If let's say this building became apartments, they changed it into apartments, that's abandoning the use. because then it becomes R4 at that point. In this case, as long as it stays a commercial building, it stays a commercial use and is not abandoning the use. So the CUP rides with the land.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, that clarifies.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions?
No.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the findings and the applicant's
Second.
request. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck.
You're good.
Congratulations.
Yep.
It's all approved.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the zoning ordinance amendment.
Yes, thank you, Chair Quilty, members of our planning commission. So as you've already titled, this is going to be the public hearing for zoning ordinance amendment. Item is for consideration of the zoning ordinance amendment ZOA 2503 as an amendment to Title 17 zoning of the Los Alamitos Municipal Code, and our city attorney, Michael, will provide you with the report.
Thank you. Yes, good evening. As was just mentioned, before the Planning Commission for consideration this evening is zoning ordinance amendment 2503. These proposed amendments are brought in response to changes to the legal landscape, and also in addition, we're bringing changes to zoning code provisions intended to make corrections and reflect best practices as recommended by the Community Development Department staff. So as you may have noted on page 11 of the agenda report, there's a table that outlines all the proposed zoning code amendments. I'll go ahead and just kind of walk through those conversationally here. I would say there's really two types of amendments being covered this evening. The first category I would characterize as being, cleanup items or clarification type changes. More specific questions on these ones that I'm going to walk through may be best answered by Tom from the planning perspective, but I'll go ahead and provide that overview nonetheless. As you can see, there's changes being recommended to figure 2-01, which would remove the word live from the description of plant material required in front yard setback areas. My understanding is that that's intended to allow for synthetic type materials in front yard setback areas as needed. We're also asking for changes to table 2-04, which talks about the allowed uses and permit requirements for commercial and industrial uses. Under the existing code, we have a classification of retail sales general, and our existing code says that those uses are permitted in the COCG zone by right. It's permitted use, but that a CUP is required for retail sales general in the PLI zone. In all areas of the zone would be the suggestion of how the code's currently written. What we're trying to do with these corrections is to clarify that these retail sales general are a permitted use in the PLI zone, not requiring a CUP when they when fronting Katella Avenue, Los Alamitos Boulevard, and Cerritos Ave. The CUP requirement in the PLI zone would still be applied as to all other areas, meaning areas that are not fronting those designated roadways. Then we look at section 1716.100, which relates to the screening and buffering requirements and clarifies that exterior utility components and mechanical equipment must be painted to match the adjacent building and wall surfaces. So again, just clarifying what visual screening requirements would apply in instances when you have these fixtures attached to an exterior wall that's visible from a public right-of-way. So those, again, are sort of the clarifying changes and cleanup provisions included in the proposed amendment. Moving on from there, the remainder of the revisions reflect somewhat recent legal developments, and I'll begin with the thrift store regulations. These changes are being advanced in response to Assembly Bill 2632, which became effective on January 1st, 2025. That legislation prohibits municipalities from classifying or otherwise treating thrift retail establishments differently than non-thrift retail establishments. The legislation does, however, authorize cities to adopt and enforce reasonable local rules for thrift stores. So our existing municipal code currently defines secondhand stores as a personal services restricted use, which means that a CUP is required for those uses in all commercial and industrial zoning districts. Under AB 2632, that would only be permissible if all retail sales were subject to the same CUP requirements, which they are not. So based on the guidance provided by state law, staff is recommending to allow thrift stores as a permitted use, similar to other retail uses throughout certain commercial zones of Los Alamitos. But we're also proposing the addition of a new section to the Los Alamitos Municipal Code, which will include operational standards for thrift stores as is authorized by AB 2632. So that brings us to the addition of new section 1728.290 concerning thrift stores. And again, this is regulations which are consistent with the state law. Government code, and I'm sorry, I know at least one of you is very interested in legal citations, so it brings me great joy to be able to provide these to you in advance. So AB 2632 is codified at Government Code section 65630 through 65632. And at 65632D, there's a list of reasonable local rules related to the collection or receipt of used and donated items that may be imposed. We've looked at that legislation and have drafted provisions for our code. So in the proposed amendment, you'll see that we've imposed requirements governing the delivery and storage of goods and donations, saying that they must be conducted entirely indoors. We state that donations may only be accepted during business hours, that there's no drop-off of donated goods. No drop-off outside of those hours are permitted. And we also say that thrift stores may not operate between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. We specify that the donation process must be supervised and operated by employees of the thrift store, that any donated, discarded, or illegally dumped items left outside of the building must be removed immediately. We clarify that any signs or outdoor displays related to the thrift store use must comply with our sign code. We state that donation acceptance areas shall be clearly marked and must provide vehicular circulation, which does not interfere with the shopping center in terms of ingress, egress, or parking, and that provisions to make sure that any sort of drop-off line doesn't queue into adjacent properties or the public right-of-way. And then we have further regulations governing the equipment that may be utilized in collection, receipt processing, or disposal of the donated goods, and also specify that any sort of donations must be done in accordance with the city's noise ordinance. So again, this tracks largely the language or the authorization language of this assembly bill in terms of what the city may embed into its zoning code when it allows these types of uses. Moving on from there, there are changes related to unattended donation boxes, which had been in the code previously. As of now, the municipal code would suggest that those uses are prohibited in all commercial zones in the city. I'm aware of at least one instance, Tom would have greater details of a donation box that is in existence in the city. I believe we've had some interactions with the property owner, but the bottom line on this is that notwithstanding the current prohibition in the zoning code, there is a line of federal cases that would suggest cities are not permitted to enact an all-out zoning ban on those types of uses. One of those cases, again with the citations that I can provide, the first is actually a Sixth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals case entitled Planet Aid versus City of St. John's. It's a case out of Michigan. There was sort of the flagship case in this respect, and it found that a zoning ordinance that banned an outdoor unattended charitable donation bin was a content-based regulation of free speech and was therefore prohibited. Moving on from that case, we have a Ninth Circuit case that cites the case out of Michigan approvingly, at least in terms of the position that charitable solicitation boxes are protected free speech. But the distinction or differentiation with the Ninth Circuit cases, they say notwithstanding that fact, the city can implement a comprehensive business licensing program that will be content neutral and regulate the operation of the donation boxes from a business licensing perspective. So what we've proposed to do with tonight's amendments is unwind the city's all-out prohibition on donation boxes. So they're now listed as a permitted use in the city's commercial and industrial zones. But we include a reference in the table that says, see chapter 5.54. Now that chapter is not before you this evening. That's sort of tearing into this idea of a business licensing scheme. That's, those provisions are being drafted basically on the same timeline as this item moving through the Planning Commission, with the expectation that if the Planning Commission approves the larger zoning code amendments, that when this goes up to council, they will be presented also with the regular business licensing scheme that we're developing. So what you have before you tonight is only a reference to these provisions, but they are in the works. And the types of things they will do is create a licensing scheme where it's unlawful to operate a donation bin in the city without first obtaining a license or an authorization from the community development director. And within that licensing scheme, there'll be certain protections built into how that business is conducted. So we'll look at things like potential hazards to pedestrians and vehicular traffic. Not all that distinct from what we were talking about with the thrift stores. I think the distinction here is very similar, but in one case we have government code authority that says you may enact these zoning regulations, and then we have a line of cases that says this shouldn't be anywhere near your zoning in terms of a ban, but you can have a business licensing scheme that regulates it. That's why it's been set up this way. We'll also look at aesthetic concerns, which I think are probably the key concern that people have with these types of businesses and operations. You want to make sure that folks aren't, leaving items at the collection boxes outside of normal operating hours and just allowing a mass of trash bags full of clothing to accumulate and not be protected from the weather and everything else. So there'll be protections like that, protections in terms of safeguarding and making sure that the boxes themselves are locked and secured, so it doesn't become something that would be attractive to someone to try to sort of root through on their own after hours or during hours and start pulling items out. And then also issues of maintenance requirements. If someone goes out and vandalizes one of these boxes, what's the owner or operator's responsibility to remedy that immediately, so that we're not looking at a graffiti-laden box in the middle of a shopping center for months on end. So there's items like that. And then another consideration would be proximity requirements, similar to what we had looked at with the group homes, where you say, okay, well, we don't want to create maybe a district in our city that has these at every single commercial lot all the way down Katella. So we'll talk about what's an appropriate spacing requirement to make sure, you may end up with one at the XYZ shopping center, but you're not going to see one right next door and at the shopping center immediately after that. So that's sort of just framing it in. I apologize for not having, much greater specifics on it, but I wanted to at least make you all aware of what that will look like as this moves up to council if the Planning Commission makes the recommendation this evening. But I'll go ahead and conclude my report with that. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So with this change, would Play It Again Sports, would they not have needed that CUP? They got a CUP a few years ago, right? I don't know if it was just for them when they moved into that new space. I don't think that.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
They wouldn't need that anymore.
We would have to look at it, but what's being enacted here has a much simpler definition of what a thrift store or secondhand store is, and they likely would fall under that definition based on what I know of their operations.
Yeah.
Meaning they would not be subject to a CUP.
Okay.
But they would have to adhere to all these other things now in terms of collections and so forth.
Okay. Does anybody else?
I do. So looking through this, I see that we are able to enact some things about thrift stores, and one of the things that stuck out to me when you're looking at thrift stores versus donation boxes is if a thrift store has one, it has to be attended. Yet in here, the donation boxes can be unattended. So I think that's what you're talking about, some of those things that can be, I don't think you're ever going to get rid of the fact that they're going to be unattended, but it seems like what you're saying is we have the kind of legal authority right now to do the thrift stores, but it's really not as clear when it comes to donation boxes, because you're going off that federal mandate that just basically says they are allowed, right?
Yeah, so again, the government code tells us that we can require the donations to be done entirely indoors for a thrift store during certain hours and so forth, but we have, it's a somewhat
At this
related
point,
but
yeah.
potentially separate issue, because a donation box may have no affiliation to any organization in the city. So you could potentially have a Play It Again Sports or a Goodwill store, something along those lines, that would adhere to our thrift store regulations. Or you may have a name your favorite charity who may have a collection box in front of a grocery store that has no association whatsoever with that store, other than they've worked out some sort of licensing deal to put their box on the side.
Right, which I think is a real life thing, because we have that right now. So, I guess the point of the property owner, and I'll use the example of the one at Vaughn's parking lot, right? So, obviously, they must have gotten some kind of, permission, I'm assuming, from the property manager to place that there.
They have a lease.
They have a lease, wow, okay. So I think the other thing that gets confusing too, because you can say charitable, but a lot of these are for-profit businesses. So, even Goodwill's for-profit. So I think people, when you see a donation box, sometimes it's, oh, well, that's okay, we can leave it there. It's okay if it's an eyesore, it's okay if it's this unattended, but because it's for the church or for this or for that. But a lot of these, that one's obviously for profit. I didn't do the research, but I have a feeling it is. I went by it. It's probably the best you can do with the donation box, because it's got, closable bins. It's got a little camera. It's got, looks like some kind of Wi-Fi on it, so they can probably monitor it. But we're not going to be able to do any of that. What you're saying is we can't even mandate that strictly on donation, or do you think we can?
What I'll say is this, is that currently we have a prohibition in place that's likely not
Legal.
capable of being enforced if push comes to shove. But with this proposed change to the code, we're acknowledging that, yes, these uses, it's a fact of life, they're allowed to be in the city. But we can now have some protections in terms of how that business operation is conducted. So if one of these uses was put in a place where we thought obstructed vehicular traffic or interfered with the line of sight at an intersection, or if the example we're talking about, I don't know the specifics, I don't want to comment on the specifics of how it's operated, but right now, if somebody piled a whole bunch of just garbage in front of it, we're looking at our code to say, how do we deal with that? What's our theory in terms of being able to get this under control? Whereas with the enactment of these regulations, we say, first of all, the operator with the property owner's consent needs to get this permit in place, because it's unlawful to operate without one. And once they have that permit in place, now there's conditions about how that's operated that we're pointing to say, hey, there's been trash bags in front of your donation bin for 12 hours. You have to now, that should have been removed within, 12 hours of us notifying you. So there's certain tools that we'll be able to put into play with this enactment that would be helpful to the city.
Yeah, my only concern would be that, when I think of thrift stores, I forgot about Play It Again, but I think of, Precious Life having their thrift store. So it's like, we put these rules on them, they have their own, they kind of they don't like donations just being dropped anyway. They do a good job of keeping them off the street. But it just seems like there's so much here that you could, literally, you get it. I don't want to say get away with. I guess you get away with more because you're not a thrift store than if you just, I wanted to plop a donation box out here. So it's to me, it seems like those two should align, if you have those rules for the thrift store. But I know this is beyond us and beyond what you guys can do, but it seems like if we have those rules for thrift stores, there should be definite rules for the donation boxes, regardless if it's a First Amendment type thing, whatever. Because you'd have the same thing if you were to build if you were to take and build a building on the that same spot that donation bin is, you would have a lot to say about it. And just because it's a 20-foot by 10-foot donation, that's the other thing, size. I've never seen one at that big. I've usually only seen that little standalone thing that sits in the corner. It's big and it's noticeable. To me, it's a distraction or deterrent on the property, but I'm not the property owner.
Well, it makes sense, if they have a lease, that they should have a business license.
They do.
The box has a business license?
They do. Yeah, when we, before, if we didn't enact these laws or whatever, by law, we had to allow them wherever they wanted to be, and with whatever rules they follow as a regular business.
Uh-huh.
And so they had to have a business license. And
Okay.
so I found out they had a lease, they have enough parking, they put it in the right place, it's clean, it fits.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I mean, I've never seen anything outside of it yet.
Yeah.
and
No,
I-
no, no,
I
it's-
pulled
Yeah.
there to pull out of the parking
Yeah.
lot, so.
Yeah.
No, it's,
Okay.
if you had to pick a business model to have a donation bin, that's it. It's just unfortunate it's right there. That's my own personal
Yeah.
opinion. Do we have any, recycling center stuff, that's not considered donation, right? Is that under a whole different thing?
That's under a different.
Okay, and that probably has more rules and stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I'd hate to have one of those right
Yeah.
there. I mean, it'd be handy, but they're nice when they tuck them behind stuff, so.
Yeah.
I have two questions. The first is the Precious Life store, are they going to need then, under these rules, to file a CUP if they don't already have one on file?
No, they already exist, so
Okay,
they don't need to, yeah.
so just for any other new ones that come in, okay.
But they wouldn't need a
They wouldn't
CUP
need it.
now.
Yeah.
Before we do this, they would need a CUP. Now thrift stores don't need a CUP.
Right.
Ah, okay.
If we approve this.
Okay, okay. And then the other goes to the donation boxes. Is there going to be any kind of requirement to post information about the organization that it has the donation box up?
So there will be requirements that will help the city identify who's responsible for the bin. So owner, operator, telephone number, all that, so that we can follow through. Because this does implicate First Amendment issues, it has to be content neutral. So we can't, for example, we want to be able to say, okay, these are permitted as long as you provide your mission statement that indicates you're a charitable organization, because the moment you ask the city to make a determination as to whether something is a charitable protected speech activity, it's no longer a content neutral regulation, if that makes sense. So everything in there is just very matter of fact about all operators. The information, again, is just identifying information to help us get a hold of them. But beyond that, there's no hard look into the financials of an organization or their mission statement or what beliefs they're expressing or trying to support with those donations.
I was kind of thinking about this in the context of having something on the bin itself so that the people that are making the donations can know a bit about the organization in a neutral way.
Yeah, I can look into that. As I've said, we haven't finalized those regulations, so I can take that input as we move forward to council and see if there's something we can add to provide that insight to someone who may want to leave donations with the box.
Thank you.
And I would think too, if a owner of one of the bins was very passionate about promoting some type of charitable organization, they would probably have that on the bin. The tricky part is we can't tell. I mean, there's plenty of charitable donation or charitable organizations that are also still for profit. So that's the tough one.
I have a question. Is there any restriction on the donation bin receiving anything like old TVs or e-waste that has leaded glass or anything? And then they throw it in the donation bin and it breaks, and then you have an environmental impact issue?
That too is something we can certainly look into. Hearing you discuss this again, that leads me to thinking about recycling
Right,
type operations. So we'll want to clarify that that's not what this is.
okay.
But I think, yeah, and in fact, I'm trying to think of how we define donation bin in the proposed amendment.
Yeah,
So we say collecting donations of clothing or other salvageable personal property. If you'd like to make a recommendation that we consider whether or not to expand that definition to exclude e-waste or other materials, it's something we could consider as we move forward.
Well, I think anything has to be clarified, like, I mean, happens to be clothing, and there's an optional little chute you put the clothing in, so obviously nothing bigger than this is ever gonna fit in there. So I think it's can we define what a donation, are we able to define what a donation bin is?
Yeah, well, I mean, page 24 of the agenda packet has a definition of donation boxes. And that's been drafted looking at the cases and then other enactments of surrounding jurisdictions to try to figure out what we think the baseline common sense definition should be. But
Right.
if there's other items,
Well, I don't know how
exclusions you want to
say it.
add,
I
or
mean, someone's gonna, smarter than me has to say it,
Yeah.
but, you know, you can't have a bin that you can't collect you know, right now, I don't know how you say it, that, right now, that clothing bin, you could leave it outside, but there's a little chute and it goes inside. Obviously, if you brought a TV over there, you can't throw it in there. So,
Yeah.
any type of bin would have to be able to receive, because it can be unattended, right?
Right.
So, any type, it seems like it would be defined as whatever the material that they're donating must fit or be, I don't know how you'd say that. I don't know how you.
Yeah,
Go be in the bin.
There has to be some mechanical receptacle that accepts
Yeah.
that bin without an attendee. I don't know how you say that, but it seems like that would be common.
Yeah.
Even though it's common sense, I
Well,
mean, people.
there is a donation bin in Anaheim that's a big door you pull down, and you could fit maybe even like a small car right there.
Right, right.
Close. So it's really big, so you could fit a TV in there. So what is to prevent someone from having a donation bin like that?
You're
And then you
absolutely
have
right.
an issue, because if they close it and then it has some kind of waste, then
I
And
think
not,
more often than not, it's gonna be somebody
Yeah.
putting it in, that they
Or-
nobody's gonna want them to put a TV in it.
And-
Right.
and-
I've also seen the one on Valley View with feet hanging out of it because they're in it,
Oh.
grabbing stuff out. So, but I think if we look at the one, even though I don't like it, the one over at Vaughn's, I mean, that seems to be a model. I mean, literally the donation thing is this size.
Oh,
And it's
so
up
you
here, so
can't.
you can't, yeah, you can't get anything in. So even though it's, you know, I give them credit, you know, for a donation box, it's a pretty nice donation box, even though it's a big eyesore, personal opinion. But,
And if I could, I think a plausible approach here could be to leave the definition, the broad definition that we have in the zoning ordinance, but then take the input we're receiving from you all tonight as we craft the operational requirements that are under the licensing scheme. Because as we're speaking, I'm just glancing at another example I've been reviewing from another municipality. And this is specifying, you know, maximum dimensions of the box, saying that it can only be textiles that are permitted,
there you go.
excluding different waste materials and so forth. So I think, again, a plausible approach may be to have a broad definition of what we understand to be a donation box, but also understanding that we will have the secondary regulations in place that say it's unlawful to operate one of those donation boxes unless it comports with the following. And there you're getting specifics about, you know, how that's operated.
And that seems like the appropriate time anyway, because you're dealing directly with the applicant that's coming to you and saying, I would like to put this, and then you're gonna issue them a business license or not, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Those would be those regulations then, okay. I'm fine with that.
I have one more thing. When that chapter comes before the council, would you be able to notify the commission so that we might be able to attend or review that?
Sure. Yes. If we can all collectively remember to do that, that should not be an issue.
Thank you.
Does anybody have a motion?
I move to approve zoning ordinance amendment 2503.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 7A, discussion of the community development block grant.
Yes, once again, thank you, Chair, members of our Planning Commission. We're here with our last item for Community Development Block Grant. The Orange County Community Resources Department requests that the city hold a Community meeting to discuss the use and priority of community development block grant, in other words, CDBG funds, and in an interest of community members. The Planning Commission will act as a conduit to provide an opportunity for interested parties to provide comments. And this item for the discussion that our, I was gonna call you a city attorney, but that our senior planner will be presenting tonight is to provide opportunity for feedback. So I'll go ahead and kick it off to Tom.
Okay, Chair Quilty and members of the Planning Commission, the Orange County Community Resources Department is who gives us our CDBG monies. They receive the monies from HUD, and whereas a city that's larger than 50,000 receives their money directly. And so smaller cities in the county all compete for CDBG funds that are given to the county for under 50,000 size cities. And the usual use of the CDBG funds is for low-income families in housing and stuff like that. But in the city, we don't have the problems that many major cities have as far as low-income sections of the town as much as other places. In our city, we use the money for the streets mostly. And the last two, before the last street we did, which was Maple Street, we did Stearns Park and Labradette Park, made them ADA accessible parks. And so every year we need to have a meeting that's available to the public. There's no public here tonight, but we need to at least try to, and we put an ad in the newspaper and on our social media, all kinds of ways, and hope that people show up if they have an opinion on this. The city, I mean, during the fiscal year, the city replaced asphalt on Maple Street, and oftentimes we use do it in the alleys, and we use concrete there, and it costs about $350,000 for the CDBG share of it, and then we do a 20% match on behalf of the city as a good faith part of getting the money that we're willing to put aside some money for it as well. And so the next thing would be to open it to the commission to the public for public comment. And if anyone has any comments, even among the planning commission, go ahead and give those, and we will think about those as well. This year, staff has decided that we would like to, if we can, use the monies for Reagan Street between Katella and Farquhar. And yeah, so let's hope we get it. And but also, if there's a more pressing need that you know of, please let me know. So that concludes my report.
Okay, I guess we open the public hearing and close the public hearing, seeing no public is here. I think it'd be great to do Reagan Street, especially with the fire station right there, and there's so many potholes on that street, it's bad.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any ideas?
I just have one comment. So when we get money from these block grants, like for example, this project here, I'll just ask the question, is there additional, like we're fixing the street, is there additional striping or bike lanes or parking changes or anything that they're gonna require us to do under this block grant?
We do the curbs and the ADA ramps as well.
Okay.
Any painting on the street that's required, we do that as part of it as well.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily get paid for by the 350, but we, as a city, not only do we do the 20% match, but we pay beyond that for whatever it takes to finish the project, the right way.
So I understand that, but I think where I'm getting at is that scope coming from the county?
No, that comes from us.
Okay, so you're generating that, because I guess I was misunderstanding, because I know we've done this before. We were told that, like, say Lexington and Cerritos, that some of those were requirements on a bigger scale of bike, whatever that thing is called, the compliance, city connection, right? Isn't that what it's called?
ATP and M2 funds or whatever, M1 funds. I can't
Yeah,
remember what
so
they're
It's
called.
ATP.
Yeah.
So something like this is just a simple street repair. We're not gonna be back in here
Correct.
talking about a bike bridge or something that we're building over
Yeah.
the city.
I can expand on that question. So, to be resourceful, our city engineer and our engineering team will develop improvement of areas surrounding just, not just this project, but as Tom alluded to, ADA compliance, which is every 2 to 3 years, we're seemingly having to make improvements upon anything that is being renovated. So a perfect example that I can actually speak to is Stearns Park. Stearns Park was one of the projects that was funded through CDBG. And in addition to addressing the park itself, there was corrections to ADA ramps around the park. So that was part of that contribution as part of the project. That isn't, it could have easily just been like focuses on the park, but it was also the exterior part. And that additional funding either comes through our general fund or whatever other opportunistic grant money may be available, but the actual CDBG funding is going to go towards the majority of what that application is for.
Okay.
So in this case, Reagan would address the street itself, but curb and gutter, anything that's, providing for any sort of liability or risk with sidewalk repair too, that can be addressed during that process.
Okay, and I guess that goes to my question too, because with any grant, and I know that there's limitations and percentages and all that kind of stuff, so, but, and I know that you guys do a good job of this, but just being sure that we're not accepting, $300,000 and being required to do $500,000 to make us compliant, like, it'd be better to do it out of general, literally, let's say that's the case, I'm just gonna make it up. You get a $300,000 grant, but they're making you do $500,000 of extra, that's $800,000, you'd be better off taking the $300,000 out of the public, or the general fund and getting sort of the street. So
They would
just
be
to make
fine
sure.
if we just did the street,
Yeah.
just slurried the street.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So sometimes, everything comes with strings attached. So it just make sure that these grants, when we do get them, that they align. You don't want to, like you said, and there's limits. I know that in my work, we're limited to 10% with ADA compliance. They just can't come in and say this is a $2 million project. You got to do $3 million in ADA compliance. It's only 10%. So I know that those guardrails are in place, but just to make sure that we're not accepting, projects, because I think that was where when I heard the public, I think that was some of the stuff that resonated out of the public from the last one. It's like, well, they're telling us we got to do this, but we don't really want it, that kind of stuff. So this one's an easy one. I'm not complaining about it. I think it's easy. So just to keep that in mind as we, move along with grant money, that it always does come with some type of strings attached. So, and then the last comment is, and this is just something simple, we don't have anybody here to come talk to this, but I know that there were some people that were very excited about some of the other projects. So I know that the Orange County Reporter it's a general circulation. I did hear you say we put it out on social media. I didn't see it like in the loop or anything like that. So I think if we do want people here, because I think it's their right to be here to chat about stuff, we can get that out there. And I think the social media is great. The loop is good, something in there, or maybe even the Enterprise. So, well, if you can get it, you have to go pick it up yourself these days. But, but anyway, I know we're legally compliant here, but I think in these, I'd rather hear, I think the council would like this too. They'd rather hear from the community now than after the project's already done.
Right, yeah. Also, these CDBG funds that we ask for are based on our CIP funds, CIP projects as well, which go through the larger community as well. So
Okay.
they are, basically I go to the city engineer and I say, what's the top of your CIP projects? And then that was Reagan Street. That's where we try to.
Yeah, no disagreement
those have
there.
been voted
That's-
on and all that stuff, yeah.
And what does CIP stand for?
Capital improvement projects, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to, what am I doing here? Making a motion to accept the project, right?
Yeah, the community
Oh,
block.
No, the block grant, I'm sorry.
we'll just move on to the next thing, but we don't need to vote on it.
Oh, we don't need a motion,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah, this
good.
is just an open house for the public to.
Got it.
Got it.
So we don't
throw
have to do
us
anything.
Some ideas if they want to,
Okay.
so, yeah.
We got our ideas.
All right, then we'll move on to items from the Development Services Department.
So I do have a few updates. Thank you, Chair, members of our Planning Commission. Sounds a little rehearsed, sorry about that, but used to it. Did want to just provide a few updates on some upcoming events. So the American Legion is going to be conducting a Hot Summer Nights classic car show, per se, on August 31st. So the community at whole is invited to attend, and that'll be taking place on their site. Another reason why it's worth mentioning is that they are going to be shutting down a portion of Chestnut on
Or is
Oak.
it Florist?
I think it's Florista. So
Yeah,
Florista
sorry
off
about
of
that.
Oak, and then a portion leading up to the alleyway.
Right.
So they're abiding through all traffic control plan standards. Everything was approved internally. So everything's by the book, but just communicating in case you may see some impact to that traffic area or accessibility. But it'll be temporary for that evening. Oak Street will be accessible all through north, southbound, and it's just that portion of the street. The other item that I wanted to present to you is that we are expecting to have a large crowd again at our Serve LosAl, Celebrate LosAl event that's coming up on Saturday, September 13th. And then a special plug for our Pine Streets event, which is run through our department with economic development, where we essentially encourage restaurants to participate in this event, as the city is funding a portion of their, or reimbursing a portion of their expenses related to personnel, marketing supplies, and food. The last 2 years, the city has contributed to the restaurants that participate as a way to bring them out to the event and also get the opportunity for additional exposure. It's in the form of like samples where you go and you receive food or items that they're presenting. So far we have about 6 restaurants that are listed to participate. Last year we had about 15, so we're trying to hope to hit our similar mark. So it's in the home stretch. We're trying to get that last call of restaurants to come in and sign up for the program. But it's a fun event. Recreation does a nice job in partnership with other supporting departments to really provide the community a really fun and just tasty event. Nights on Pine, we had our last event on, it was a couple weeks ago, August 14th, I believe, and that was in similar fashion what we've done in the past several years now with activating Pine Street through events and connectivity and just really trying to get the community and surrounding folks that come out to participate in events and support the cause of trying to activate Pine Street. So the next one is September 11th. It's a Thursday night from 6:30 to 8 p.m. It'll be a country-related band and then other activities surrounding for family, friends, and neighbors to come out and have a good time. And then the last one would be on that Thursday, October 9th. So it's the second Thursday of the next 2 months. We will be conducting, I think, to Mrs. Commissioner Heichman's excitement here, we will be doing a ribbon cutting for Labradette Park. So the project itself is pretty much done, what we term as substantially complete. There's just one punch list item that's pending, but that's not going to impact the actual park from being able to be used. And so we're excited to provide you the opportunity to attend, and the community as well, at the ribbon cutting ceremony on Monday, September 15th at 3:45. It's just a celebratory way of just unveiling the park and making it accessible to the public. And so we're excited about that. That same day, we will be doing a groundbreaking ceremony for Seroptimus Park. And Seroptimus Park will begin construction right around that same week of September 15th. And though Labradette, just to specify, that was funded partially through CDBG and also general fund. Seroptimus is not. That's a different funding source. It's Prop 68. But it's exciting because that'll be the next park on our laundry list of projects that are underway. And so that'll be happening pretty soon as well. Much smaller scale, hopefully quicker timeline than Labradette. But just wanted to appreciate your interest and everyone else's interest in seeing these parks come through with improvement. And that summarizes all the items that I have for you tonight. Thank you.
What time is the ribbon cutting?
So ribbon cutting's at 3:45.
3:45.
And then groundbreaking will be shortly right after, around 4:30. So we encourage you to come out.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to commissioner reports. I have a couple questions. What's going on with the medical building on Katella by Carrier Row that just has been in that same state for,
Yeah.
seems like a very long time?
Oh, guys,
Health
building.
problems on behalf of the owner. And they have, every time the weeds get tall and the things start falling apart, we call them and they fix it up. And they have taken out their building permits again each time, so they've extended them another 6 months each time. I don't know if they have any plans anytime soon to finish that building.
Okay.
That's,
And is there a limit to how many times somebody can extend their permit?
yes, there is, and then they have to pay all over again. So I think I can't remember what it is, it's a
Okay.
building department question,
Got it.
but yeah.
Okay, and we talked a couple meetings ago about agendizing, moving the meetings to 6 PM. Can we put that on an agenda? And see if people want to do that or not?
So we can internally revisit that. I do recall you bringing that up, so thank you for reminding us. But I will like to caution that there was also a request made by former Commissioner Lowe to do that same change, and it was alluded to something about our charter that prevented us from being able to change our commission meeting. So I'll, what I'd like to do is I can look into that,
Okay,
and then I can provide a response.
Okay.
So that way I can give you a firm answer on that. I don't want to
Okay.
quote that.
my last question, but it's probably not, one of you guys might know. How do we find out, we live in the same neighborhood in the Highlands. We've had 2 police activities where they're out with their guns in the last week, one on my block and one on Cherry today, but you never see anything about it. Like, I follow the social media, I look on the police, on the website, and there's never any information. Do you know how we find out, like, why they have their guns drawn in front of your house?
That one, I don't know.
You know, I can certainly pose that question to our police department and see if there's any sort of messaging that can be increased
Because like
whenever
Seal
there's.
Beach, whenever something happens, it's on their Instagram instantly.
Mhm.
And I follow the police chief and the police department, and there's never anything about incidents. And then when you look in the news enterprise, they never hit the crime, the little crime
Sure,
blurbs in there.
Sure. That's an area that I'm not familiar with, but I would be happy to inquire through our police department.
Another one happened today, and there were a lot of police came flying through the neighborhood, so.
Understood. Yeah, I can look into that. I can ask that question to police department.
All right. Is anybody else?
I have a couple.
Okay.
We didn't have a meeting in July, so I just wanted to again thank the city for the 4th of July, that the fireworks went off as planned with the many, many restrictions. I'm glad that actually happened for the public. I think that's great. I'm on a personal crusade to get it put back on 4th of July for our 250th, but that's a whole separate issue. But I also wanted to recognize, I do live along the base there, and one of the reasons was because the National Guard moved in there, and it's interesting living there to realize that that base is our neighbor. It is an active base. It was an interesting time because there's a lot of people back there and a lot of dust and a lot of stuff. And I think I didn't hear anything about it in the public. I think everybody recognized that, whether they agreed with the mission or not, that's what that's for. And it's good to know that the National Guard has that facility in case of, other emergencies and things that they can mobilize. It was amazing to watch them within a week, build a city. So I just wanted to give them kudos, and I think kudos to the residents that didn't, get up in arms because I'm still cleaning up dust, but it's fine. I think that's how Los Al is, so I'm happy to live in Los Alamitos for those reasons. Lastly, thank the city for, I know it was a little bit of a process, went through the council, went through some other stuff, but the restriping on Lexington and the restriping at Cerritos and Los Al. I'm assuming school started, so I'm sure, you know, people didn't freak out, but the compromise or whatever they came up with looks like it's working. Especially on Lexington, it's no longer unsafe, you know, to make that left turn, so we appreciate that. And that's all I got.
I wanted to report out on some of the events that I have attended since our last meeting. So on June 28th, I attended the Paws in the Park at Little Cottonwood Park, and that was really fun. I don't have a dog myself, so it was fun to get some dog time in, and there were some wonderful organizations there, a variety of them, so kudos on that event. It was really fun. I also, on July 10th, attended the Concert on Pine, which was an 80s night, which was really fun because that was what I grew up doing. But I saw a lot of people from the city there, and it really had the feel of like a mini Hollywood Bowl. It was really, really fun atmosphere. And then I had a conversation with, there's a new staff member that was hired in the rec department. And she specializes in senior services, and because I take part in a lot of those, she wanted some input from me, so I sat down with her, and they're really interested in revitalizing the program for seniors to come in and drop in and hang out and have some, you know, community and things like that. So that's something that they're hoping that the rec department and the senior club will be able to work to get that a little more active, because evidently that really was hit hard by COVID, and so there aren't a lot of people meeting face to face as much. On July 19th, I went to the Seal Beach Fish Fry, which I've never been to before. It was a real blast. I don't know if anyone here has been there, but they've been in existence over 100 years, and it was an amazing, really, really fun event from one of our sister cities. And then lastly, today I went to the Senior Expo, which was at the community center, which had lots of vendors on all different kinds of senior services and lots of giveaways. And I went to the one last year that was at the Legion, and compared to this one, there were a lot more vendors and really good turnout. So that was a really successful event, and hope that that's going to be something that we have continuing annually. So that's it.
I think I'd like to say the Recreation Department does a wonderful job with their summer camps. It's my 3rd year taking my 9-year-old there. They do a great job. I just have to say kudos to them because they're a lifesaver for working parents. It's affordable. They do a great job. That's it.
All right. With that, we'll adjourn to next month.